cybersecurity in industry and in supply chains. Well, joining us to talk about that today, Sid Snitkin, Vice President, ARC Advisory Group. Sid, welcome.
Thank you.
Sid, we want to talk about cybersecurity, of course, in the world of industry and in supply chains, but let's be a little topical for just a moment. Cybersecurity is clearly an issue top of mind for people in government and in banks. But if you could, let's just discuss what might be the difference between the concerns in those verticals versus what they are in industry. What would you say?
That's an excellent question, Russell. Clearly the thing we read about in the news and the big concern for banks and for governments is loss of information, privacy issues, and confidentiality issues. And industrial companies have that concern. I mean, every big company has that. There's companies have clients and customers. But the more important thing that I think for industrial companies, or a big concern for industrial companies, is to actually have infections get into their control systems in their plants. Because the concern in that case is that somebody actually comes in, does damage to the plant, or causes the plant to misoperate. And if you have a refinery sitting there and someone gets in and damages it, it could blow it up. Okay, so it's a different issue. It's controlling the actual physical equipment, and that's the big concern: is maintaining the integrity of the equipment and this control systems.
So it's not just a concern about proprietary information, but actual damage to the productivity, if you will, shutting down a plant.
And safety, productivity, safety, compliance is a big issue today.
Well, let's turn to supply chains. If you're an operator of a warehouse, if you are concerned with transportation, what's the focus that you have? What's the discussion around cybersecurity there?
I think supply chains are probably one of the most difficult, I think, because you have everything. When you look at a supply chain, they're so complex. They have everything. They may not have manufacturing, but they certainly have warehouses. They have assembly facilities and things like that. They also have transportation. There's a lot of information that flows. One of the big issues with supply chain that I see is, and I used to be involved in supply chain, so I'm aware of supply chain, and the issue was generally a focus on the movement of goods. Now it's the movement of information. The movement of information is just as big, if not bigger. And now there is a big issue of maintaining the confidentiality of that information in transit and in the different locations. That's one aspect, which is kind of the bank, government kind of issue, but except very complex because you're dealing with lots of different players. Very big issue. The other one is the physical things that in supply chains, you have warehouses, you have trucks, you have transportation systems. When I say supply chain, a lot of people think we're just talking about trucking. We're really talking about multi-mode type transportation. You're talking about rail systems and things like that. Those systems are considered critical infrastructure and could be attacked and damaged, so it causes major disruptions. And one of my things, probably an exaggeration, but when you see what happens with the airlines today, because everything is so optimized, if you miss a flight, you're just going to be stuck there for a week. Imagine, you have shipments and you're tying your supply chain tightly together to move things, and you get a disruption, it has a major impact.
Sure, time-definite concerns are very much top of mind there. Let's talk about supply chains as they relate to IT products. Security in that area, is there a particular concern there that we want to address?
Yeah, that's another supply chain issue that's really emerging, and this is kind of this other side of the coin. This is in the case where we're trying to make sure that the IT products, when we say IT products, I'm assuming you mean things like laptops, smartphones, any kind of a device these days, which everything's that. And one of the big concerns is to make sure this device you get does not have malware in it. One thing is to make sure it doesn't get in, but another thing is to make sure that all the parts in there are safe and secure, so that someone hasn't stuck things in that. And there's a lot of reported instances of that, like if you take firewalls with Cisco, which when I say Cisco, it's an industrial thing, but everybody has a Cisco router in their house. I'm not promoting Cisco here, by the way, but everybody has a Cisco firewall in their house. There have been cases where the firmware and that has been malware has been embedded in it and things like that. And in that case, the way it happens is somewhere in that supply chain, somebody is changing something. Okay, so you have this issue of tracking and making sure that it's tracked securely. And I likened it to the case of tracking pharmaceuticals and tracking products, which is a very big issue in certain supply chains, like pharmaceuticals. You need to know that you need to know where everything came from and how it came and control the transfer. So kind of the reverse issue, but it's a very significant issue.
Well, clearly, it's not just a matter of productivity when you talk about industries like pharmaceuticals. Highly regulated government compliance is something that is strict, something that you really need to adhere to. So cybersecurity there undoubtedly is extraordinarily important. Sid, I know you are busy here at the forum, but you took a moment to sit down and speak with us. Thank you very, very much.
You're more than welcome.
Well, that's Sid Snitkin, ARC Advisory Group, and speaking with us about cybersecurity in the world of industry and in supply chain. Thank you for watching.